For this project, I used a yarn from Fru Valborg. It's called Squeezy Merino DK and it's 100% Merino Superwash. And the color is called Oh No Dim. It's really soft and a really nice thickness to work with. Now I rolled up my skein to this really cat-friendly ball, and I'm just gonna take a little thread off so I can start casting on for the vest. So start here, and I have a needle 3.5. Just like this. One air mask and then I just continue. You can meet me in the end of the row when you're casted on as many stitches as you need for the size you're knitting. Now I've casted on all the stitches. I just have to make sure everything is facing the same way, so it's the stitches are not twisted. I want the bottom to be facing the same way throughout the whole thing before I connect it in a circle. Like this. So, I have a little extra thread here. I'm actually just gonna take it and knit it along just for the first few rows, or no, the first few stitches, I mean. Just because I'm lazy and I don't really like to tuck in the threads when I'm done with the project. So, here I have the stitches for the size I'm gonna be knitting. And yeah, as I said, I'm just gonna take a double thread just to start with. So first 2 stitches, I'll just knit it, and then there are 2 purl like this. And again 2 stitches knitted and 2 purl. Yes, it looks really nice. Pretty difficult to see it when I'm knitting with such a dark color, but at least I've connected it in a circle from here. And I'm just gonna continue knitting for the rib. I'm releasing the thread here. I don't need it, it's been tucked. Good enough for my standard at least. And just continue knitting. So now the rib has been knitted. And from here I'm gonna change over to a bigger needle, and I'm only gonna be knitting a normal or a flat stitch from now on. So I'm just slowly knitting out the row and removing the pin I was using before and changing it over to a bigger needle here. So it's as easy as that to change the needles. As I just knit it over slowly. Now I'm knitted up to the length required. From now on, the vest is gonna be knitted as front and back side. I'm gonna start by binding off the stitches. So I just do it, I just knit and then I take the previous stitch from before and cast it over, and I just do it. It's not too tight and not too loose. It's just this kind of fine balance, allowing the stitches to kind of get the space that they would have. So just continue here. Just gonna count. I need 3 more. Okay. So as you can see, it kind of gets this kind of natural fold in it. It's not, they are not kind of dragged and squeezed together. They're just getting their normal space. So now we'll knit for the front side. I will just continue here. You can see here's the under the armpit. So I'm gonna do the same here by binding off the next couple of stitches. So it's here, just loosely. And now I have banded off under the armpit for the other side, and I will knit for the back side until I've reached my previous bind off. And then from here the west has been divided and will be knitted back and forth until it's connected by the shoulders. And I actually, when I'm knitting like this, after I divide it up, I actually just continue knitting on the same needles as before, but you can of course take straight needles and knit it like that if you find that more convenient, or if you get confused on which one of the side is back and which one is front. I will start knitting the back side from the wrong side, and what I do here is I will take the first stitch, I'll knit it over to the needle and just pull the thread like this here and over, and then I'll knit a purl stitch and just throughout the row. You can do it a little bit slower just so you can catch on from here. There are many different ways to knit the purl, and you just, if you do it in a different way, just go ahead and do so. And I will just continue knitting until I reach the other armpit, and then I will show you how it will. So I'm just going to show you how you make the decrease here. So this is the front piece, and I'm just starting off from the front side. The binder is over here, and I'm starting off with a new thread, so I always take the first stitch unknitted, but because I'm adding the new thread on, I will actually knit the first stitch, so I get the new thread here and on. And then I will knit the next 3 stitches, and now I'm on to the 4th and the 5th. And to make so the decrease, and when I knit them together, in order to make them mirror each other, I will actually take the 4th stitch first over, and then I have the 5th stitch, and then I will knit them together. That's how I get the 4th stitch to overlap over the 5th stitch. It's gonna make sense when you actually come over to the other side, because then the decrease is gonna create a pattern and mirror each other from both sides. So now I'm just gonna continue knitting, and I will just knit all the way over to the other side, or until I have 5 stitches left on this row. So now there are 5 stitches left here on the row, and now we'll just knit the next following 2 stitches together. And as you can see, if I count from the left side, it's actually 1, 2, 3, and the 4th stitch is overlapping over the 5th stitch if we count from backwards. So that's why I took the stitch from previously when I started the decrease, and I took it over, and that's how I make this. This pattern is appearing in the piece. So I just knit the rest of the stitches, and then I will just turn it around, start from the wrong side, the back side, and then I will take the first stitch and unknit it, and knit purl all the way on the back side. And this is how I will just repeat until I have reached the amount of stitches that are supposed to be on the needles, and I will just continue here. And when I've reached all the way to the other side, I will just do the same thing. First stitch always taken off the needle, unknitted, and then I will repeat the decrease. And when you have done that, it's actually gonna create, I'm just gonna show you because I've already knitted a little bit from the back side. So if you can see, it actually creates this beautiful pattern here in the decrease. So this is how it's done, and if you take the first stitch unknitted, it's gonna make this beautiful braid on the side, which makes it easier for you to pick up the stitches when you start on the rib for the armpits. So I will from here just continue knitting as. So now I have knitted up for the sides, both front and the back side, and I'm just gonna show you how I will divide the front piece up to continue working on the straps on each side. So we'll start by taking the first stitch unknitted, and then I will knit the next 19 stitches, so 20 stitches in all, depending on which size you're knitting. So like this, and then I will actually knit a little bit further, or just according to the knitwear instructions, based on which size you're knitting. A lot of the stitches are a little bit twisted on my needles, but that's just because I was moving them around the needles, so I didn't thread them, or exactly like they are supposed to be, but I will just knit it correctly from here. It should be facing like this. Well, yes. Side. Two more. And then I have this extremely long safety pin, and I will thread for the middle in the neckline here. And just put them on the safety pin, and then you will use them later when you knit for the turtle neckline. So okay, stitch count looks good. So I'll continue knitting this here and out. Like this. Now I will knit for the wrong side, and just as I've been doing before, I will take the first stitch unknitted and then knit purl on the back side. And now I will turn around. We're coming to the front side again. First stitch unknitted, knit 2, and then I will take this stitch over to the needle and then knit it like this, so they come 2 and 2 together. So the decrease get the same kind of pattern as here. So, and that's how we knit for all the straps until I reach to the top of the shoulders. I'm gonna continue knitting here, and then I will meet you on the top of the shoulders, and I'll show you how you stitch them together. Now I'm I'm done knitting the straps, and I've opened up for the neckline. So this is the back side, and then I have the front side here. And now I'm gonna stitch them together. Just gonna show you the technique that I use. This will give the shoulders they will be stitched together and they're seamless. So from here, I will start by entering this stitch here from the wrong side and out, and then I will take this here and just put it in. It's difficult to start, but when you're at it, it's really easy, and it makes the stitching is gonna look like it was knitted. Just make sure it doesn't twist too much. So you come, just turning so much. So you come from, it's from here, this one here. So from above and down, and then from the back side on the new stitch. Take it off the needle and just pull through. And then I go down here from above into the stitch I did previously, and then from the back side and up again. So it's slowly happening here. From above and in, and some here and over. Slowly forming. And it's just a beautiful finishing touch. So they're connected together without a crochet or anything. Like, of course that's an option, of course. But this one is, in my opinion, a lot prettier way. And then I will weave in the end here from the wrong side. Just have it here in. And I will do the same thing on the other side. Just make sure you stitch the right strap together. Looks nice. And you can't tell where I stitched it together. So now I've stitched the sides here together, and I'm gonna start on the rib. So, and I'm actually starting from the back side. First, just taking the needles off the safety pins and moving it over to the knitting needles and just and I have the back side, and from here on the sides of the straps you have to be really crafty to kind of pick up enough stitches so you will need the required stitches on the needle again. Now I have the stitches up from the straps on the sides. Now I'm moving over to the front piece. I'm removing the stitches from the safety pin. And then I'm gonna do exactly the same on the other side. Just make sure to reach the amount of stitches that you need on the sides. And now I'm slowly moving on over to the other side, over here. So. Yes, now I have all the stitches up here, and I just want to show you a little bit how I will stitch the sides, or how I will knit the sides, just so there won't be too much gap on the sides. We'll start here from the back side and just knit for the rib. Just twisting it a little bit so I can reach the sides. Still have a little bit more to knit from the back side. So those are the needles that were on the safety pins. So they are just an extension of what we have been knitting. The sides, they are a bit different, and because the stitches, the gap of the stitches can really vary. So I will actually knit the sides twisted. So we'll twist the stitches that are pulled up from the sides or the straps, and just knit everything as a twisted stitch. And that way I'm giving the new stitches a little bit extra. So the twist actually makes the gap a little bit smaller. And it's gonna give a really nice finishing look. So just in the first row, if you do that twisting, it's not gonna look like holes, or like, at least it's not gonna be as a big difference on your vest. So, and that's, yeah, gonna be the same thing throughout this row. The only difference is the stitches that are from the safety pins. They're just knitted as normally for the rib, as you would do. So yes, and I will show you then when I'll just continue knitting for the rib until I reach the measurements that the neckline is supposed to be, and I will show you how I bend off, and then I will show you how to do the armpits. So now I'm done with the neckline, and I'm just going to show you how to cast off. It's really important when you cast off or bind off that you don't do it too tight, because then you can't pull the neckline over your head. So just knit one and take the next one here and over, and then the next stitch as purl, and then I bend it over like this, and just make sure it's loose enough so it kind of goes along with the stitches. I would say a little bit looser than the other bind off under the armpits. So just like this, and it's going to create this braided pattern here. I will just repeat that throughout the row, and then I'm going to show you how to do the rib for the armpits. Now I'm going to show you how to do the rib for the armpits. So it looks like this when it's done. Actually just band it off the same way as I did with the neckline. So I'm only going to show you how to pick up the stitches from the sides here, because I use a technique because I really like the pattern that the decrease created here, and I don't want to go pick up way too much to create a gap here, so I would rather create stitches as I go along. So we'll start by taking the stitches here, and I start under the armpits because I don't like to see the the connection of the rows. I want it to be as hidden as possible. So I rather want to pick a place in the west where you won't be able to see it as clearly. So this one here under the armpits, just an easy. I will just take the stitches that I have binded off previously and just pick them up. And then here in the sides, you're just counting along as you pick up the stitches here. So just make sure you pick up enough so you have enough stitches on the needle when you start knitting. And I'm just going to continue. You can actually see, because I created this French edge, I'm actually taking off the wrong way. It's like this. So now I'm taking the 10 stitches that I binded off previously, and then I have the edges here, as I always took the first stitch in every row and knitted over to the needle, so I can actually grab on here like this. This is how it looks from the inside, and then I just do that, and I'm counting how many stitches I pick up and put on the needle, just to make sure I reach the amount that I'm supposed to pull over. So like this. So the pattern gets this beautiful extension to it. And because of the rib, actually, everywhere where the rib is, the size of the west increases so much that I actually we will create new stitches when we start knitting in order for it to kind of create the same shape and continue, so it won't decrease too much on the sides here. So I'm just gonna continue picking up the stitches on the sides, and then I will meet you when on the other side when I have all the stitches on the needle and I'm ready to start knitting, because I'm going to show you which technique I use in order to decrease the amount of stitches without picking up the stitches from, as you would do normally. You just pull up a stitch from a previous row to create a decrease, and that's a way to do it, but I'm going to show you which way I do it in order for you not to pick up a stitch from previous row, because otherwise we are going to ruin this beautiful pattern here that we created. So I'm just going to continue, and then I will meet you on the other side of this first row of picking up stitches. So now I'm gonna start knitting. So I have my thread here, and I'll take the first stitch here and I'll knit it. I won't take it off, and then I will knit another stitch. Feels like this, and then I come from here and kind of twist it and knit another one. Then I will knit for 2 purl, and again here I will knit 1, twist and knit another one, and that's how I'm gonna decrease in the rib on the armpits throughout the whole row. And the reason I do it just because then my beautiful pattern here on the sides is gonna stay intact. Like you can really tell that you have a stitch here, there's overlap in the next one. But if I would go and pick up 1 stitch to create a new stitch, it would create a flaw in my pattern, and I don't want that. So I'm back here, I have 2 purl, knit 1, twist and knit another one through the same. 2 purl and knit. Now I've reached, I'm done knitting the stitches that I picked up, or like that I binded up from the previous row. So now I've actually reached the sides, and because the stitches are actually bigger than normal stitches, I would do this twisting, the same thing that I did with the rib and the collar of the neckline. So now I'm supposed to do a purl, and the purl I'm gonna twist. So take a stitch over so it's twisted, and then I will knit it purl from here like this. Now I'm back to a knitted stitch that is gonna be knitted double, so the stitch amount will decrease. And next stitch is purl. So I only do this twisting in the first row that I knit. Then after that it's just a really normal rib knitting. And I just do that because otherwise, or sometimes, not always, but if you don't do the twisting, you might it might end up being like a big hole. I'm just gonna show you like this, if you can really tell. Yes, it's a huge hole that each stitch creates, but if I do the twisting, it looks different. So take it, knit it, just twist it, and then it twists like this. It actually creates a nice pattern as well, but it will at least decrease the size of the stitch that is coming here. A little pulling, but it's gonna be nice. So that's how I do or pick up the stitches for the size for the vest. And when I'm done with this side of the arm, I'm actually gonna be done with my project. So I will just bind off the way I did before, and then I'm done. So I'm just gonna continue knitting, and yeah, looking forward to being done, soon to be done with my project.